All right, let me now introduce a very special guest, former Gophers punter and the original holder of the year, Peter Mortell. How are you doing?
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So I guess we'll just get right into it and kind of um all the way back to your playing days, obviously. What I always find interesting is punting and kicking. No one obviously kind of grows up and wants to be, I guess, a punter in the NFL. And if I'm correct, you did play. You didn't just punt in high school; like you were a position player. When
Yep.
did you kind of start punting? Like, when did you realize, like, oh, I might be good at this?
Yeah, so it was like I was punting all through kind of grade school as just like a secondary position. It was kind of just they needed someone to do it.
Yeah.
But once I was in high school, I played receiver and defensive back. And as I got towards my junior year, I quickly realized that I wasn't going to be playing those positions at the next level. I think my 5'2" 40 kind of had something to do with it. So I kind of realized that the only path I had to probably playing collegiate football was as a punter. So my junior year, I went to a kicking camp. It's called Cole's Kicking Camp. They're a pretty big organization just around the country that holds all these showcases, and they grade thousands of student athletes and punters, kickers, long snappers, and went to a camp and had a good showing and realized that maybe this is something I should kind of take more seriously over my summer of my junior year into senior year.
Yeah, so would you say it was kind of that like heading into your junior year that you kind of realized like you always punted growing up, but you're like I might be pretty good and I could probably do this in college. Was it kind of like that time?
Yeah, it was. It was like the junior year, right after my junior year season, which in today's world is pretty late to make that decision. Kickers, punters, snappers, right now, and I'm gonna even throw holders in there.
Yeah.
They think about that kind of stuff earlier now. So I'd say the earlier you make that decision, the more looks you're gonna get. But I definitely made that one a little bit late, but I'm so glad I did for sure.
Yeah. Um Something else that I find pretty interesting with specialists is sometimes you're kind of just like uh you're obviously like a different part of the team. You're just out practicing by yourself and you're kind of doing your own thing. Was it kind of hard for you first few years in college when like you saw the rest of the team practicing and you were just used to going to normal football practice and now you're just punting and kicking at practice?
Yeah, it's a total adjustment you have to make because you're used to being used in, hour and a half practice, almost all of it in some capacity. But kicking and punting, it's such I mean, we probably practice like on the field. We did our pre game or pre practice stuff, but once you're during a live team setting, period one's field goal, maybe period four is punt, and then after that, I mean, you're still expected to be present. And sometimes they'll do a random call out session towards the end of practice where you got to stay loose. But at the end of the day, it kind of helped me because that's how games are. I mean, there was games where I'd punt 0 times. And then all of a sudden, fourth quarter, we'd have a punt. Or all of a sudden, maybe we get off to a slow start and you're punting early and often. So it all in all, I think our coaches did such a great job of that at Minnesota. Like special teams is always such a big thing. And even today with them, they once the coaches can realize it can be used as like a weapon and not just something, just another play, that's when I think teams can kind of take leaps. So yeah, it was definitely a good thing in the long run for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Would you say, because I find like punting and kicking, it's kind of like golf almost. You're doing the same thing over and over and over again. Was it like ever hard for you in college when that was all you were doing to kind of stay motivated in practice and stay like locked in mentally?
You know what? I learned to love it because you're right. It is a lot about golf or similar to golf, which I love doing as well. But the one thing that I really liked about punting is at the end of the day, it was kind of on you. If you didn't hit a good punt, if you kicked one out of bounds, you really had only you to really think about and look back on it. So for me, I like that responsibility. I like that I knew that I was in charge of my success. And yeah, you need to have good snaps and good protection and everything like that. That was never an issue at Minnesota for me. So I like the accountability aspect of it. So as I was progressing through Minnesota, and I tell punters all the time is, it's all on your shoulders. If you hit a good punt, that's, take the credit. But if you mess something up, you better not do it again and learn why you did it.
Yeah. Kind of an open-ended question. You can kind of take it wherever you want, but what would you say your favorite memory or just thing about playing football for the University of Minnesota was?
Man, that's a really tough one for me
Yeah.
because there's so many. From a football perspective, growing up in the Midwest, you see all these games every Saturday at different stadiums around the conference, right? So being able to travel to Michigan, Nebraska, Ohio State, I mean the list goes on, but being able to go to so many places is kind of just now being out of the school for 6 or 7 years, you think back about, well, that was really cool, and maybe you didn't really appreciate all the traveling and all the venues you got to see in the tradition of college football. So that was something. But what really kind of stuck with me after I left college was just the community around Gopher athletics in general. I mean, seeing it now versus what it even was maybe when I first got to Minnesota. I think it's really special. I think the community just really loves the team and the school and the university, and they interact with. I was a walk-on punter, and I was on the depth chart or back on the depth chart, 2 or 3. When I got there, and I stayed there for a little bit. I sat for a year, and I mean, for them to kind of welcome me, I mean, it just speaks to who Gopher Nation is, and so I would say just the interaction with the fan base, I think, is unique and it's special, and it's there today, and it's cool to always have that to look back on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So if I am correct, you did sign a training camp deal with the Packers, and so how was that process kind of like after you graduated and you're like, do I want to punt at the next level? Because it's way different than like a normal player, because you go to like the combine and stuff, or you do draft interviews. So how kind of was that process after college to signing the deal with the Packers?
Yep. So after the bowl game, there's about 4 months, almost 5, until the draft is happening.
Yeah.
And it's tough to get drafted as a punter, kicker, long snapper. Some years there's a couple that will get drafted. I mean, I think there was a year recently where no punter got drafted. So you don't really have the expectation like that's going to happen, but you train as if it may. So over those next 4 or 5 months, I spent with a very specific lifting and training program set up by Minnesota. I stayed on campus, and I spent a couple of weeks where I traveled to, meet with various punting coaches and everything like that. But yeah, there's pre-draft combines and stuff like that too, where you're taking films and you're sending it out to scouting departments. And if you have a chance to potentially, either get drafted or sign, which I felt like I did to sign a contract, I got an agent, and they started advertising my film everywhere. So yeah, there's steps you can take. But at the end of the day, nothing is more important than, your pro day, which is in March. So I partook in that. Now I skipped the 40-yard dash and the bench press and all that stuff. We didn't need to do any of that stuff, but yeah, definitely did a punting workout. And then after that, they sent the film out to all the teams that were there or weren't there. It's a stressful, but you look back on it, it's a pretty fun, time in my life.
Yeah, for sure. So that kind of transitioning to the Holder of the Year award. For anyone that doesn't know, you've obviously been asked this a bunch of times, but how exactly did you come up with the idea, and like how did it?
Yeah, it's it's really funny looking back. It was 2015, and it was around the time that all those all conference teams were being let out and
Yeah.
released. And so I was in the apartment with a buddy, and we got to the end of the show, and I looked at him. I said, "Oh man, bummer, we missed it." And he looked at me confused because we were just staring at the screen for the last hour. And he says, "Missed what?" And I told him, "Oh, the first team field goal holder. They didn't announce it." And I saw his initial reaction, and he laughed, and I all of a sudden I just was like, "Oh, maybe there's something here to joke around with." Everyone who knows me around the team and the community, specifically at that point in time, they know that I like to have fun. Very serious when I was asked to do my job on the field, but afterwards, I like to have that good balance between seriousness and not being too tough on myself. And so instantly what I did is I messaged Travis Perry, who was in our recruiting office. I sent him a picture of me holding, and I said, "Hey, Travis, can you write holder of the year on this, make it look cool? And I'm just going to tweet it out." And then all of a sudden he did, and he did a great job. He probably doesn't get enough credit for what he does. He made a pretty cool graphic, and I tweeted it out with a funny caption, and that's how it was born. It kind of made the rounds on national media almost instantly. And I think a week later, I made a acceptance speech video to be aired on the ESPN College Football Awards. So it's funny because it was a complete joke, and most people understood that, especially around Minneapolis. And then what was cool is it started off so funny, but we paired up with the University of Minnesota Children's Masonic Children's Hospital, and it was great. We raised $30,000 in 2 weeks, which was really cool for those patients and kids who were going to be spending Christmas in the hospital.
Yeah, definitely. I remember when it all started. I thought that was the funniest thing ever.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
And it's still around. That's what's crazy. It's I never thought that. I never thought that would continue going on, and I'm glad it has, because I think that's such an underappreciated position.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to do it until you kind of have to do it, and there's a game-winning field goal on the line and stuff like that. I always enjoy this. We had so many good athletes on our team, and I was friends with so many of them, but it was always so funny because every now and then, the coaches would bring one of them in to hold, because the obvious potential to the fake field goal game, if they could figure it out. I mean, there was quarterbacks, receivers, starting receivers out there, and I would just always go out there and watch, and it's just so funny because it's hard to do. Unless you really know how to do it, just from catching to the whole operation. So yeah, it was cool, and we had a lot of fun with it, and it's cool that award is kind of still sticking around.
Yeah. So when obviously it still exists and you're voting on guys who win every year, is it just you who picks the winner, or how does that process work?
We have an anonymous committee that makes that gives the final votes, and also we consult with previous winners. There's holder of the year group chats going around, so it's not just me. But at the end of the day, I'll take the final decision, and it's good. I think we had an awesome winner this year, and there's just a lot of things that kind of go into it. But if you can execute kind of fake field goals and stuff like that, and your kicker's good, you got a good shot.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So not to put you on the spot or anything, but you're obviously still a fan of Gophers football, and what would you say your Mount Rushmore, it could be teammates or players that you're watching now, just top 4 favorite Gophers football players
that I've played with, or just that I'm watching?
Yeah, either or, I guess.
Man, you are putting me on the spot there. Yeah. I'll tell you what, my roommate, Drew Goodyear, I see quite a bit. He used to be a tight end for the Gophers. I'm still pretty close with him. He's one of my best friends. And one thing I liked so much about Drew is one time at the end of practice, Coach Kill stopped it and brought everyone up and said that he was the toughest man in college football. So I always make sure to remind him that he maybe was, but I was the toughest person in the apartment. So we always have a good laugh about that. Also really close, keeping in the tight end room, Max Williams. I'm such a fan of Max, and it's fun to be a part of the ride with having Max on the team. Just such a difference maker, and what he's been able to do at the next level. That's just been really fun to watch and follow along with Max.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna say my third right now. I'm very happy to have played with Devondre Campbell and see all the damage he's doing over here in
Yeah. For your
Titletown. Yeah,
yeah.
that's fun. He's such a difference maker. It's so cool to see him getting some success and accolades for what he's been doing. I think he was named All Pro last week, which is just, I mean, what an accomplishment for him, especially when he was a free agent, at the beginning of the year. And then the fourth person, I would say it's Casey O'Brien. For everything that kid has been through, I mean, what a role model. I know he's younger than me, but for how he just approaches life and his attitude about everything, I mean, we can all learn from him, and I think we all will continue to learn from him for a long time. So I'd say that's probably my Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's all I got for you today. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this again.
Yeah, no problem, Tony. Appreciate you having me on, man. It's been fun to watch you, and appreciate all your coverage of Gopher athletics, man.
I appreciate that.